Howdy folks, this is Wild Bill. Welcome to Top Tips for the Modern Cowboy. The topic of today's video is bluffing. So before we check out this hand, what exactly do we mean by bluffing? The idea is we find ourselves in a situation where we are pretty sure we don't have the best hand. However, we think there's a very good chance we can get our opponent to fold, and so we bet anyway, hoping that he folds. So here's an example of a bluff I made, and we'll talk a little bit about the reasons why we decided to bluff here, because it's not just something we do randomly. It's usually a good idea if we have some kind of logical reason for why we attempt to bluff. So in this hand we face a call from Lobo, we face another call from Ali. In some cases the best option here is very clearly to isolation raise. Maybe you've seen the video on this particular topic. The problem is we don't really want to be isolation raising in this particular example because Lobo has a very short stack and we can't really get in pre-flop with a hand like 10-9 suited. We don't want to get all the chips in pre-flop. So we elect to just call in this case and see a flop. It's a very nice hand to see a flop with, can make lots of things like straights and flushes. But unfortunately we don't get to see a flop for free. Exodus Alpha in the big blind decides to make a raise. Given that there's already so much money in the middle, we can't really be folding our 10-9 suited. It's a very good hand to just call and see a flop with, which is what we do. In this particular case, we completely missed the flop. This is not really a very good flop for us. However, the important thing to notice here is that our opponent decides to check. And usually many players are going to continue their aggressive action if they have anything. He made a raise pre-flop. He's going to make what is known as a continuation bet on the flop. He's usually going to continue his aggression and fire a bet if he actually has anything. So his check here is actually a very big indication that perhaps he isn't very strong. He might have something like pocket sevens, for example, which is actually a very weak hand in this kind of texture, when we ourselves could easily have an ace or a jack. Maybe he even has something like king-9 suited, which is completely missed. Despite the fact that we don't have anything, this is actually a pretty good spot for us to make a small bluff, hoping that our opponent folds. So we bet half pot here, and he does indeed fold. It takes a little bit of practice to identify good bluff spots. It's not always going to be correct to fire a bet when we don't really have anything. In fact, most of the time we should be giving up. But with practice and experience, we'll be able to identify situations where it's actually correct to bet with very many hands simply because we know our opponent is going to be folding most of the time. Thanks very much for watching. This has been Wild Bill, the future governor of poker.